Hello again. I want to talk about the format, the layout that has been invented for paneling a webtoon. I've been aware of the existence of webtoons for 3 or 4 years now, and I often considered whether I should do all my projects in the style of webtoons because they're made for mobile and they're easier to read on the phone. In fact, there is a project you could probably go and find on Webtoons that I created a few years back that is in the Webtoon format. I've read a couple of Webtoons. There's not really that many good Webtoons out there that at least I don't feel like there are. But the ones that I have found that I've thought were worth reading, there are a few things that jump out at me about the Webtoons layout. The first thing that jumps out at me is that it's kind of difficult to follow the story panel by panel. In a manga, you're looking at an entire page, and your eye can always dart back and forth between the last panel you were looking at and the current panel to kind of help your brain establish what's going on with the story. With Webtoons, that's not the case. It's like a whole panel will take up the entire screen, and then you scroll down for the next panel. That's one thing that annoys me about it. The other thing that jumps out at me is that Webtoons seem to be kind of difficult to publish in book format after you create them. I mean, there are some webtoonists who create their comics in the original, traditional A4 comic book format. Then they just break those panels apart into individual sections to post as a webtoon. That seems pretty smart, except for you have to create 2 versions of your story that way. And not only that, it can interfere with some art techniques, and it really just makes the process take much longer. So the question is, if the process is going to take longer to make the story this way, are the benefits of creating the story this way great enough to warrant all that extra work? My answer is no, because there's actually more cons to creating a story in the webtoon format than there are in a traditional comic book format. The cons are, 1, you can't write it in black and white, you pretty much have to go full color. Most webtoons are created in colors, so creating it in black and white would actually put you at a disadvantage. You may as well make it in the traditional manga format anyway. Second con is, since it's not in the traditional manga format, or if you want to, you can make it in the traditional manga format and then split it up like I mentioned earlier. Since it's not in that format, it's going to be much more difficult to publish in print format at some point if you want to do that. Not only that, I can't imagine trying to make an ebook out of these things. Good lord. Number 3 is accessibility. It's easier to read it on mobile than it is on PC, whereas you can read stuff drawn up in the traditional format on PC or mobile. Contrary to popular belief, it is not that difficult to read a comic in the traditional format on a phone screen. Not to mention, if you do find some things a little bit difficult to read, there's this wonderful feature we have called zooming, and you can also read it with the phone in landscape mode, make everything bigger so you can read it, and then just scroll down. It's not that impractical, guys. But getting back to webtoons themselves, the ultimate question is, are there more pros than cons to creating a story in this format? No, I don't think there are. Not to mention, webtoons were predominantly created in Korea, South Korea. The majority of webtoons are Korean manhwas that have been translated into English. If you as an English speaker go and look for webtoons, 90% of them are going to be Korean-made manhwas, not American-made English text stories. So since it's a Korean niche, I don't think it's really that good of an idea to buy into it too much. That's all I'm saying. Also, since this is kind of a subjective matter of taste sort of subject, feel free to comment below what you think about all this. Do you prefer the webtoons format, or do you prefer reading in a more traditional comic book format?